I wasn't going to comment on the murder of the United Healthcare CEO because I hadn't been given any evidence to think that his murder deserved any more attention than any other murder, but it looks like the police caught the killer, potentially, and his name is Luigi Mangione, along with a recent book review he provided for a book that was discussing the Unabomber, and it's looking like this was actually a politically motivated killing. What was really surprising about Luigi is that he appears to be highly intelligent, well written. He was the 2016 valedictorian of his high school, and he may have actually carried out this murder with good intentions. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with the idea that murder can be righteous, but it at least appears that Luigi believed that killing could potentially produce some good for society. I want to make sure you understand that I will not be arguing that Brian Thompson deserved to die because I don't know enough about that guy personally to make that claim, and I'm definitely not going to argue that we should allow vigilante justice as a society. Um, in my opinion, if you truly believe that operating out of traditional justice is necessary, the best way to prove it is to show that you are willing to accept the legal consequences of your actions. We can't allow people to murder others no matter how honorable we believe their intentions to be, because allowing vigilante justice creates more problems than it solves. I'm not going to get into the consequences of vigilantism in this video, but if you'd like me to make a video on it, feel free to make a request in the comments. So with that all being said, in this video I'm going to be arguing that Luigi's intent was righteous and that he is correct in his belief that violence can be justified for creating positive social change. I'll be supporting this belief with the following claims, which I'll break down throughout the video. Number one, there is no historical or moral basis for assuming violence can't produce intended change. Number two, I will present a formal syllogistic argument explaining why average citizens are likely better suited for justice than the politicians in charge of our legal system. And number three, I'm going to show how the wealthy members of society have almost entirely positioned themselves above legal reproach, making it impossible for us to create long-lasting, meaningful change without violence. I'm going to start my discussion on the first point by reading Luigi Mangione's latest book review on the idea, basically discussing how to use violence to create change and when it's justified. So here's what Luigi had to say about the Unabomber. When all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. You may not like his methods, but to see things from his perspective, it's not terrorism, it's war and revolution. Fossil fuel companies actively suppress anything that stands in their way, and within a generation or two, it will begin costing human lives by greater and greater magnitudes until the Earth is just a flaming ball orbiting third from the sun. Peaceful protest is outright ignored. Economic protest isn't possible in the current system, so how long until we recognize that violence against those who lead us to such destruction is justified as self-defense? These companies don't care about you or your kids or your grandkids. They have zero qualms about burning down the planet for a buck, so why should you have any qualms about burning them down to survive? We're animals just like everything else on this planet, except we've forgotten the law of the jungle and bend over for our overlords when any other animal would recognize the threat and fight to the death for their survival. Violence never solved anything is a statement uttered by cowards and predators. He also wrote a manifesto directly to the Feds saying, "To the Feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect you for what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech has been pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so pretty much not much info there. I do apologize for any strife of traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly number 42 in life expectancy. United is the largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, and Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these assholes essentially they've simply gotten too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. So that was Luigi's opinion, and my opinion is honestly not much different. There is minimal historical basis for assuming that only peaceful protest is capable of bringing about positive change. In 1215, 40 barons created the Magna Carta to limit the power of an absolute monarchy. The United States Declaration of Independence was written by just 5 people and obviously required unlawful violence at that time in order to enact. And the end of slavery in the United States was dependent on the Civil War. One of the most famous quotes from our nation's founding fathers came from Thomas Jefferson, who said, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." If you believe in American patriotism in the historical sense, then you deeply believe in the positive potential of violence. Now, I know the most obvious counter to these examples that I just provided is that they are all results of groups of people working together, not just a single individual. So let's go a little deeper. And how many people do you think would scold a mother or father who, after catching a man in the middle of raping their child, killed them themselves instead of waiting for the justice system? If you disagree with a father taking justice in that scenario into his own hands, and under that circumstance, I think you are in an absurdly small minority. Now, let's take it one step further. Now, what if such a father couldn't legally prove it, but he knew beyond doubt that a powerful, wealthy man or group of men were in the middle of enacting a plan that would intentionally destroy the future health, wealth, and well-being of not just his own child, but of the entire nation? Would you consider a father evil for killing that wealthy man under such a circumstance? If the outcome of a wealthy CEO's actions are more negatively impactful than a child rapist, why should we consider such an individual above the consequences of interpersonal violence? Perhaps you would disagree with this method, but would you at least acknowledge the morally honorable intent of murder in this context? We don't know if the CEO of United Healthcare fits the description of the wealthy man in this scenario I just presented, but it appears likely that Luigi believed he fit the description. So now I've discussed the historical moral case for vigilantism, and now I'm going to present a syllogism providing proof for the occasional validity of vigilantism. Governments are capable of conducting justified violence. That's premise 1. Premise 2, governments are composed of individuals. Conclusion, therefore, individuals are capable of conducting justified violence. Moreover, governments are run by some of society's most pathetic, disgusting, narcissistic, psychopathic individuals. And if our pathetic, disgusting politicians, who have next to zero legal accountability for their actions, can occasionally be justified in conducting violence, then surely a highly intelligent individual like Luigi can also occasionally be justified in conducting violence, especially if such a person is willing to accept the consequences of their actions. And obviously we know from his manifesto that Luigi was prepared to go down for this. For those of you who are knowledgeable of formal logic, you know I probably just committed some sort of attribution error. However, if you are knowledgeable enough to know what that attribution error is, you probably understand how reasonable my point is. So if you can, please help me solve the problem that I just committed right instead of being a pain in my butt. Moving on to supporting claim number 3. Wealthy organizations and individuals are known to subvert the power and authority of nations. And we are increasingly seeing this occur in the United States and around the world. We are now in a time where both Republicans and Democratic politicians feel free to pardon their associates and family members of crimes. The average person has little meaningful capacity to hold a billionaire judicially accountable unless they are backed by someone or some organization of comparable wealth. Wealthy people can just postpone their sentencing until their accusers are bankrupt with lawyer fees, and even if you succeed in convicting a billionaire, chances are they won't see an ounce of the jail time they deserve. Just look at the Elizabeth Holmes case, for example. It also seems that this trend of class injustice is only going to get worse. According to data from the U.S. Census Bureau and Pew Research, the rate of wealth increase for those in the top 5th percentile outpaced the growth rates of all other income groups. The world's wealthiest billionaires are breaking down their own wealth records at a ridiculous rate. Elon Musk is now worth $300 billion, and almost all of Trump's cabinet now at this point is composed of billionaires. What's even worse, we discovered through Trump's tax records that wealthy people pay virtually zero taxes. The picture on screen summarizes his tax payments over several years, and you can see that in almost half of those years, he actually earned money from his taxes. Can you imagine a billionaire earning money from paying taxes? So we have an increasing shift of wealth towards a class of mega millionaires and billionaires who contribute nothing to our tax system. No wonder everyone's becoming poorer and poorer. The mere existence of billionaires, honestly, is its own related problem because no one should have enough individual wealth to influence election outcomes unless it comes at extreme expense to their wealth position. But in our most recent election, we witnessed a multi-billionaire essentially create his own self-funded lottery to convince us to vote for his preferred candidate. No way should that be legal or even fiscally reasonable. I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to use their wealth to impact the outcome of elections, but to do it on that scale should require an individual to basically make a sacrifice commensurate with the level of impact such a decision is capable of having on election outcomes. But since Elon is now breaking world records for personal wealth, he can just casually donate millions or even billions of dollars and potentially undermine the earnings of Kamala Harris's entire billion-dollar campaign. He has almost $300 billion. Giving $1 billion is nothing to him. Crazy. Now, I know some of you are probably about getting ready to argue with me about whether or not uh, Trump and Elon are the good guys making positive change. I'm not interested in that conversation. I'm just talking about the issue that Elon's wealth introduces to society. So let's sum this all up together, okay? So, number one, we have an ultra wealthy class of corporations and people who can't be held judicially accountable. Number two, we have an ultra wealthy class that cannot be taxed in order to either even the distribution of wealth in society or share the burden of sustaining our society. And number three, we have an ultra wealthy class of people capable of undermining our election processes now, too. So, all that combined, if the ultra wealthy now have invaded our society so deeply that we no longer truly have a peaceful judicial means of restoring peace and equality, then what options are left for us other than violence?